What's up YouTube, Dar here from Zephyr War Games, and we are back fresh from Euros. So I thought today I would bring you my winner mat winning Tearlament profile, and just to prove it, this is the winner mat that I chose. So obviously there was a lot that you could have selected from, and I went of course with the Legendary Duelist Season 6 Dark Magician mat, because this was a mat that I hadn't had as of yet. Euros was really cool. I had a lot of fun. This was a deck that I didn't take into the main event because there was a bit of a last minute rush and I wasn't quite ready with it. I made some changes with this, and I've kind of made it adaptive to what I was expecting to face in the side event, and kind of go from there. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content, whether it be updates to profiles or just general news releases as well. With that out of the way, we're going to dive head first into the main deck, the side deck and the extra deck for Tearlaments. Now, this isn't exactly pure. I have messed around with it quite a lot and put in some different engines, different plays, and just generally adaptive play styles, and played around with what I could utilize in different ways. So the cards you need to be playing 3 of is Triple Shiren and Triple Havness. So Havness is your hand trap. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, specifically, you get a quick effect to summon this card from the hand and then excavate or mill the top 3 cards of your deck. Now, obviously this can be a little bit risky, but the good thing is you can do it turn 0. If you get incredibly lucky, you could mill a Shadow monster plus a tier monster, which will then give you instant access in order to win your opponent. However, what you're aiming to do is to mill at least 1 tier monster, because then that will then trigger a chain of events. And what I mean by that is that will then trigger a chain of events during your opponent's turn, where you will then be able to conduct a fusion summon into Kit Kalos. Kit Kalos will then trigger effect to either add or send, and if you send, you can then trigger that new Tearlament monster in the graveyard to either fuse, depending on what else you've excavated or milled, or you can use itself and go into something along the lines of a Dracus Depelia, or if you've been incredibly lucky, you can also go into the Kaleido Heart, giving you a free shuffle. Shiren is the one that is during the main phase. You can special on this card from the hand, and if you do, you send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard and then mill the top 3 cards of your deck. Again, if you send a tier monster, it will trigger its effect to fusion summon. Keep in mind, all of the tier monsters, or mainly these tier monsters here, are if they are sent to the graveyard via card effect, you will then get the ability to fuse. Keep in mind that you have to use the monster that you trigger to do so, and they are all hard once per turns, but the fact is they've all got utility to either help you mill the deck or to help you fuse. Meryl is the one on normal or special where you get the ability to mill 3 cards, and it has a very nice combo with the Kit Kalos. Now the way it works with the Kit Kalos is you can use Kit's effect to target itself and then revive from the graveyard or special from the hand a Tearlament's monster. That will then allow you to summon out the Meryl, and because this is sent to the graveyard via card effect, you then get to go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2 or vice versa, and it will let you mill 8 cards. This is something you want to do if you haven't already triggered any of your other Tearlament monster effects, or if you've got the ability, you know the majority are on your bottom of the deck because you've already shuffled them back or chose not to activate them earlier in the turn. We've then got 2 Tearlament Reinhardt. Now, I'm not saying that this is the most optimum build, because I mean, when you look at the one that got 2nd place at Euros, that deck had some very spicy interactions and very spicy techs. When you look at stuff like Zero Boros, when you look at Dark Grepher, Reinforcement of the Army, everything like that. Reinhardt is on normal or special. You send a tier monster from your deck to the graveyard except himself, and if this card is sent to the graveyard via card effect, you get to special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. And if you do, you send a tier monster, or sorry, a tier card from your hand to the graveyard, which will then again, because it's sent as via the effect and not a cost, trigger the effects to fuse. Or if you send the trap cards, you will either be able to add 1 from the deck to the hand or add 1 from your grave back to the hand. Speaking of the trap cards, we play the 1 Sulik and the 1 Meta Noise. Now, arguably, you'd probably want to cut the Meta Noise because it's probably the least effective of all of them. It's better for a grind game, but what it does is if you control a tier monster, you target a face-up monster your opponent controls, change it to face-down defense position, and then send a tier monster. Now, its target is cost, so if the target leaves the field, you'll no longer then be able to book a moon it, which means you'll then no longer be able to send, which is why it's a little bit weaker than the Sulik. If this card is sent to the graveyard via card effect, you get to target a tier monster in the graveyard and add it to your hand. Again, the majority of your tiers are probably going to be going back to the deck through the form of the fusion summons, so that's probably where Sulik comes in a little bit more and is going to be more utilised for you. Keep in mind as well, Sulik is also a continuous trap, so if you control a tier monster or a Tearlament's monster or a Vista Starfrost, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effect, and then send one monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard via card effect, you get to add a tier monster from your deck to the hand. You can only use each effect once per turn, but the fact that it's continuous means that as long as you put a tier on the board, you can constantly keep just sending it to the grave in order to trigger the effects, and by doing that you're then going to be able to trigger a fuse or a search or anything you need. The other honourable kind of tier monster, I did play 2 King of the Swamp, and the reason I did this was a last minute change, which I regretted straight away as soon as I did it and put my deck list in, but I cut out Polymerization for 1 fusion substitute. Now, this was a terrible idea, I do not advise doing it. A lot of people will cut in King of the Swamp, which I completely understand. If you cut King of the Swamp, you open up some space in your extra deck because you don't need to play Kaliga and you don't need to play Millenniumize, which again, very rarely did I use. Fusion Substitute, I think I used once to fusion with, but it's more so just to have a Mystic Mine out, because with this in the graveyard, what you can do is you can put a Kit Kalos or any of your fusion monsters back into the extra deck to draw 1 card, and then it will also trigger the field spell, so you'll need to have that active. Because specifically, if a tier monster or monsters you control on your graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, you get to target a card on the field and destroy it. So if you resolve your Kit Kalos or your Kaleido Heart, you'll then get a pop. Arguably, this is like a 46 card deck. These 3 can be cut completely. There was a couple of times where King of the Swamp came up, more so as acting as Rhino Heart than acting as... I think it acted as Relinquish once and it activated as Rhino Heart once. Never used Kaliga, so arguably I can understand why people are cutting this. I then played a very small Danger Engine, and this is again where I would update this and change this, because I made a bit of a ratio mishap because I was playing another engine in the deck. So for the dangers, I played the 1 Nessie and the 1 Mothman. I really should have been playing at least a Jackalope. So again, the thing about these is when they activate their effects and then the card gets discarded, it's sent via card effect. So it can trigger all the tier cards. On top of that, it gives you a draw, so you're able to go through your deck, because this deck doesn't really have, unless you're putting in Prosperities or anything like that, main deck draw cards. So the dangers are very, very good. It triggers the effects of the tiers. They're pretty much everything you want. And it kind of fits the theme of the deck, where it's all about luck. And what I mean by that is your mills. You can't control the mills you have unless you're going to specifically stack the top of your deck. And then you can't control if your opponent snipes these out of your hand or not. The idea is that if you do, the Mothman would be a draw and discard again, triggering an effect. Nessie would then be able to get you the Mothman, so you're able to keep going and it replaces itself. On top of that as well, Nessie is an Aqua and Mothman is a level 4, plus it is a Dark. So this can help you get you into Mud Dragon, but it can also help get you into Time Thief Redor, which in this deck is absolutely nuts and I really, really love it. So that's it for like the main tier cards. I mean, you can probably count the Dangers as a mini engine on its own if you want to, but I'm going to take you through all the other engines that I did play. So I played a very small Shadow package of the Beast, the Hedgehog, and the Beast, the Falco, and the Squamata. I found myself taking Squamata out. The only reason you put Squamata in here is so that when you send it, or when it gets milled, you then get to send another one. So you then ideally get to send the Beast for the draw. And then what you've done is you've put 2 Shadows in the graveyard, so you've got the ability to make Winder at a later stage in the combo rather than having to do it early doors straight away. Falco's in here because I was playing the Punk engine, and I was playing again a very small Punk engine of 1-1-on-1. And the reason that I've got these in here is I personally really like the way the Punks played. I was contemplating playing pure Punks, but there was so many tiers running around and I felt that tiers are just a little bit more difficult to deal with because not everyone is still clued in on how you stop tiers, and it's a little bit more difficult to stop them because it's kind of like, well, I can choose to stop this card here, but then they could have another one that's going to keep doing the same thing. Sometimes you just leave it down to luck and you say, look, if their mills are bad, then great, I'm in the running. If they're good, then I'm in a bit of trouble. So with the Punks, it basically gave me an engine that let me bait out so many hand traps, so many forms of interruption, and vice versa. If my opponent had already tried to stop my tiers, I was then able to go through the Punks, and the Punks pretty much lead you all the way to some really cool interactions because you get all the way to a mill 5, which can then trigger the tier effects. It can also get you to add cards to your hand as well. Then you can use Halley Firebrax to bring out the Falco. You can banish a Light in the Dark from the graveyard to summon back your Chaos Ruler, and then you can sink into a Baron, which again gives you a negate on the board and gives you roots to play further forward. Arguably going forward, again, I feel that the engine could be a little bit at risk, and as you can see that as well, that I've already kind of forced in, like, because of the Punk engine here, I'm playing Falco, which is a bad brick to have. So again, I fully understand why these would come out, and that's where you can update this list as you go. For the hand traps, I played double Ogre, double Crow, and double Ash. Now, again, I was pushing my luck, putting this to like 46 card deck. And again, it was just one of these ones where I was putting these changes into the last minute, learning what I had seen during the main event on the Saturday. And I was kind of like, right, well, I need to have that balance. I need to be able to play hand traps. I can't just sit there and let my opponent build their board. Because when you look at something like the Sprite board, if they go off unopposed, they will end on a Toad plus an Elf, plus possibly an orange and or a carrot, and then a smasher if they're playing correctly. Some risk it and bring out a dupe frog as well, so that they're then protected from attacks. So you kind of need to be able to stop Gigantic, which these 4 cards do. And then this one was ideally for the tier matchup, but also you can hit the Ronin Toad in, which can cause issues if they've already banished the swap. But the Sprite players are starting to adapt, and they're kind of adapting that by bringing back off of Elf as well. Going into the spells, just for the punks, obviously triple E-Telly. The idea is that, yes, E-Telly would become a little bit of a brick later on, but you do have Ghost Ogre that you can summon off of it as well. But the punks themselves, it's just something that if you can save your normal summon, it means you've got the Meryl route play as well. You've also got your Rhino Heart play as well, so you kind of want to open up as many avenues as possible. We've then got triple of the most expensive card in the deck, and that's the prime, well, apart from the extra deck, is the Planet with a Terraforming. Terraform is actually really important because I was main decking 1 Mystic Mine, which did win me a game, and I'll explain that later on. So the Planet is just so good. On activation, you search out a tier monster, and then like I mentioned before, if a tier monster is put back to the main deck or the extra deck, you get to target a card on the field and destroy it. If that wasn't enough, all of your fusion monsters and tier monsters gain 500 attack. So it turns a Rhino Heart into a normal summon 2000 attack beta. And then it also gives you the ability to bump up some of your fusion monsters as well. So your Kaleido Heart becomes a 3500 and so on and so forth. The main deck Mystic Mine was a last minute decision, so shout out to Carl on that one. I was kind of looking at it and I was like, well, when you look at a Splight end board, which we saw so many of at the event, I was expecting the side event to be littered with them. I was like, you either need to draw Dark Ruler no more or bust. But then I was like, if I've got Mystic Mine in here, not only have I got a way to get rid of it myself when I want to, but it gives me the ability against tiers as well, that if they've got 3 monsters on the board, I can shut them down under Mystic Mine and know that all of my cards are going to resolve. Against Sprites, it's one of them ones that if you can bait out the Smasher, if you can then bait out everything else and you've got nothing left apart from a Terraform into a Mystic Mine, you drop a Mystic Mine on the board, your opponent will then go, ah, I was not expecting this. The Smasher's already gone, they've got no way of getting rid of it in the main deck. You then get to go into game 2, and that's where you can get to your side deck as early as possible, which is exactly what happened in my matchup against Branded. It wasn't the nicest of games that I had to play, but it was one of them ones where I needed a top deck, and the only top deck that would save me would be Mystic Mine in order for me to regain some resource, and that's exactly what I got. So the matchups that I played were, I faced against Tearlament, Sprites, Dragon Link, and I also faced against Branded, so, you know, a nice range on that one. Double Super Poly, this actually put in a lot of work in the main deck. So again, this was a last minute decision that I knew I wanted to play, I just didn't know if I wanted it in the main or the side. I ultimately went by putting it in the main, and it just helped so much. So if your opponent gets greedy and they bring out a Duke Frog in Sprites, you break their board because you get rid of Toad, and then you can go into like the Garura. The issue is the Toad can then come back, but then you've got the battle damage to get rid of the Elf and kind of build from there. We've then got the 1 Foolish Burial, so you can trigger Shadow cards, trigger your tier cards. 1 Call by the Grave, pretty standard, and then the 1 Instant Fusion. So you can go straight for a Millennium Eyes Restrict to protect all your plays going forward, but you can also go into a Kick Kalos, and all of her effects will still be live. So that's it for the main deck. Like I said, there's a lot of changes I would make with this. This is just mainly to showcase a different variant from what will probably be circulating right now. And also to kind of talk you through my experiences and the changes that I would make and go from there. For the extra deck, of course, we were playing the 1 Kaleido Heart, and then controversial, I've played the 1 Kit Kalos. I probably should have been playing 2. I played 1 because I just couldn't find the space when I was mixing in all of the punk cards as well, and I'll show you those and explain each of those as we go. The 1 Windar, pretty straightforward on that one. The 1 Garura, great super poly target alongside Mud Dragon, because not only can you just hard make both of these in your deck as well, but you can also use them as super poly targets. 2 Dracus Depelias, pretty straightforward and simple on those ones. The 1 Kaliga and the 1 Millenniumize, like never made Kaliga, made Millenniumize once. We then got the 1 Halley Fibrax, and that led into, well, through these you'd go Baron, you've got Chaos Dragon, you've got Formula Synchron, and then of course you've got the 1 Psychic End Punisher. Another nice thing about this variation of the deck is if you open up well enough, you really don't care about D-Barrier, because you have access to pretty much all of the summoning mechanics. You've got access to your Link monsters, which would ideally then get you into your Synchro monsters, but you've also got XYZs, you've also got Fusions as well. So luckily in my Dragon Link matchup, I saw none of my tier cards, and then game 1 I saw, or game 2 I saw my XYZ cards, so I lost game 1. Game 2 I saw my XYZ cards of Time Thief Reader, but nothing else that could get me anywhere else. And then game 3 I ended up seeing all my punks and my tiers, and he was like, whoa, where did this all come from? And then yeah, it kind of led me to game, which is why it's so important. So again, I would adapt this extra deck. There's a lot to change, like the Kaliga and Millenniumize could come out if you remove the King of Swamp, and that's where you can start putting in more Link monsters like Zero Boros and so forth. So now onto the side deck, which might be a bit more generic for everyone, or like a bit more, you can use it and build it around. So for the side deck, we've got 2 Lava Golems. Like, there are plays, especially with the punk, that you don't even need to conduct your normal summon. Lava Golem can be incredibly powerful. It can still be a little bit difficult against the Sprite matchup, because you can Lava Golem take out, you always need to take out Toad, and then you always need to take out the Elf, otherwise Elf just brings back the Toad. At those points, you can still be stuck with a Smasher and an Orange and a Carrot, so you do have to be very, very careful. Off the back of that as well, with Lava Golem, what makes it pretty good that a lot of people still forget is that if you're in like a time restraint and your opponent's played it very, very safe, they put 2 monsters on the board, they've left it to you, they pass to you, you make your plays without burning any life points, you give them Lava Golem, you can pass, and then standby phase, Lava Golem will burn them for 1,000, and then it means that you're outside of Cowboy range, and it also can cause them a lot of issues. So it's definitely something to be aware of, that Lava Golem can help break boards very, very easily. Not to mention that stuff like Tears and like less so Mathematics, because they're very rarely leaving 2 monsters on the board, but just more of these ones where they're putting 2+ monsters on the board. If you don't need to conduct your normal summon, your Lava Golem is god. And Lava Golem is better to, in my opinion, to Sphere mode, is because it's more considered that people will be putting 2 monsters on the board rather than 3. Double Mystic Mine to complete the playset, double Cosmic Cyclone to deal with stuff like Anti-Spell and anything dangerous, triple Evenly Matched, triple Mischief for the Gnomes, so reducing levels is crazy good, and then triple Anti-Spell. Now, Anti-Spell is such a powerful card right now in this format. It would be interesting to see if Anti-Spell gets hit to kind of help promote the Mist Ruins, but I think that would be very, very difficult. I feel that there's so many times when you can flip Anti-Spell during the draw phase or the standby phase or anything like that, and your opponent can crumble. You've also got to keep in mind as well that this is really good against Dark Ruler. Not that you should really be fearing Dark Ruler, because you'll have stuff like Handvish, you'll have stuff like the Traps, you'll have other ways to trigger and then spin your fusion monsters back. But it is just something to be aware of. That's kind of why I've got Cosmic in here. It's less effective against me, like you do lose your Field Spell, you lose Dark Ruler, but if you're going first, usually what I was doing is I was taking out 3 Dark Ruler for 3 Anti-Spell, and then if I was going second, I was putting in 3 Evenly Matched, 2 Cosmic Cyclones, 2 Mystic Mines, Lava Golems. I was putting in a lot, and then taking out stuff that was affecting my consistency. I was taking out the Falco. I wasn't really relying on the punk route or strategy, and kind of going from there. Anyway, that is it for the profile. I know I've gone on quite a lot, but I hope I've put in as much depth and detail as I possibly can for this, so that you guys can kind of see it, learn from it, make your own changes, and just see that there are different variants out there of the tiers if you do want to play it, or just be aware that there are different variants out there that if you're going to be facing it at your locals, specifically post this list or post this current Euros, I would not be surprised if we see a massive spike in different forms of the tiers, and this is the deck of the future. This is the deck that is going to get constantly good support in Darkwind Blast, and of course in the Maiden sets in November as well. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.